often feel like things are never working out for you or that people just don't understand? Well, it's possible that frustration comes from the meanings you are unconsciously assigning to the events and the people in your life. Today, I want to talk about why it is so important to be conscious of the meaning-making process and how taking control of that can transform the way you make decisions and live your life with purpose. Let's consider that. Hey, I'm Jennifer, a life coach certified by Tony Robbins, and you've found Consider Jennifer. My passion is to show you the power you have to live the life you deserve by taking the time to consider your life so that you can be on purpose with making it happen. Consider your life, be on purpose. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Jennifer Meyer, and this is Consider Jennifer, our place online to take some time to consider our lives so we can be on purpose with living them. In today's video, I want to explore meaning making and how it impacts our day-to-day lives. So let's start at the beginning. It's very important to know that our brains are wired to create meaning. It's how we've evolved to make sense of the world around us. And this process happens automatically, whether or not we're thinking about it. Every situation, every interaction, every person, our brain is busy assigning meaning. We're always evaluating and assessing the circumstances in our lives. And then we're saying to ourselves, this means blank. We are quite literally meaning-making machines. It's just what we do, and we cannot stop doing it. But what a lot of people don't realize is we get to choose the meaning. We can choose what the meaning is that we give to the circumstances in our lives. Now, if we don't choose, our brain just fills in the gaps, based usually on old patterns or default biases and beliefs. Doing that often leads us down paths that aren't helpful or really even healthy. And we end up giving meaning to things that are either not true or don't align with who we really are or what we want to be. So for example, you might get stuck thinking, I didn't get that job because I'm not smart. But is that really true, or is that just a meaning that you've assigned to the situation because you failed high school math? By being aware of how your brain is working, you get to decide if that's the story you want to believe, or if there's a more empowering and honest meaning you can give to the situation instead. Now, one of the reasons that we really struggle with this is because we don't always see the choices we have. And this is because of cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts our brains take purely to be more efficient in processing information. And one of the most common is confirmation bias. This is where we interpret things in a way that confirms our existing beliefs, what we already believe is true. So if you're 5 and you hear a noise in the house on Christmas Eve, you're going to believe certainly that it is Santa. It won't even enter your mind that it could be your parents or even just the refrigerator downstairs making some noise. Another example, let's say for whatever reason you don't think you're good at relationships, and then a friend cancels plans on you. Your brain might very quickly assign the meaning, see, people don't care about me. But you have to ask yourself if that's really true, or is it a bias talking? When you recognize that you have the power to question and then reshape the meaning that you give to an event, you open yourself up to an entirely new way of thinking. And then instead of falling into the same old stories, you get to ask yourself, what else could this mean? Or my favorite, how can I choose a meaning that serves me better? Now, why is all of this really important? What's the big deal, right? The meanings we assign to our experiences, they shape every single decision we make. So whether we realize it or not, the stories we're telling ourselves and what those stories mean are at the core, the center of our lives, because these choices determine whether we're living intentionally or just reacting to the world around us. And that influences our behavior. If you're not actively deciding what your experiences mean, you end up on autopilot. And that means you're just making decisions that don't reflect who you really are or what you really want. And of course, when that happens, That's when we start to feel disconnected from our purpose. We start to feel frustrated and stressed, anxious, and ultimately unfulfilled. Now, the key takeaway here is the ability to choose and reframe the meanings in your life gives you control. It is, in fact, the only thing we really have any control over at all. And in truth, every saying that you've ever heard that has to do with personal control or responsibility is ultimately referring to this ability. So instead of seeing a setback as a failure, you're learning to choose to see it as a part of your growth. And then suddenly, that new meaning drives you forward instead of holding you back and making you feel that you're not capable. That's why becoming aware of your brain's meaning-making process is absolutely everything. It's the key to unlocking a life that's aligned with your deepest values and your desires. When you intentionally choose the meaning in every situation, you're no longer just reacting. You're consciously shaping your future. You become a co-creator. You're making decisions that lead to resilience, personal growth, and ultimately fulfillment. Okay, so great, right? That's fabulous. So what the hell do we do about it? How do we become more aware of these meanings? And the two most powerful strategies are mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Both of these approaches help you move from being passive reactors to your thoughts to becoming intentional creators of meaning. Now, mindfulness is important, and it's about becoming deeply aware of your thoughts and your feelings in the present moment without judgment. That's the key. By practicing mindfulness, you train yourself to observe your thoughts as they arise without immediately accepting them as facts. Viktor Frankl talks about this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, when he references the space between a stimulus and a thought or an action. And becoming mindful helps you catch automatic negative thought patterns before they solidify into meanings that limit or stress you out. So, for example, if you notice yourself thinking, I'm not good enough, mindfulness is what gives you the space to question that thought. Instead of immediately assigning it to the meaning of failure, you can choose to pause, recognize that it's just a thought, and then let it go. Or reframe it into something more constructive, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Mindfulness gives you the power of choice in how you interpret and then react to the world around you. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, on the other hand, really takes things just a step further by actively challenging the negative or distorted thoughts that you're having. In CBT, you learn to identify cognitive distortions, which are patterns of thought that lead to inaccurate and often negative interpretations of events. These include things like catastrophizing, where you expect the worst case scenario all of the time, or all or nothing thinking, where you see things as either complete successes or total failures with no middle ground at all. Shoulding, which is a video that I released a few weeks ago, is also a type of a cognitive distortion. CBT teaches you how to challenge these distortions and replace them with more realistic and balanced thoughts. So for instance, if you catch yourself thinking, I failed that project, so I'm not any good at my job, CBT would encourage you to take a step back, mindfulness, and assess that thought more logically. Maybe the project didn't go as planned, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're bad at your job. It might mean that you're new and have more things to learn. Maybe there were external factors in play that you just didn't have any control over. By reframing your experience, you transform the meaning into something that's productive rather than defeating. That encourages you to learn and grow and make different choices as you go forward. Together, mindfulness and CBT offer a powerful punch. Mindfulness helps you recognize when your brain is creating unhelpful meanings, and CBT provides the tools to actively change those meanings. And the result? You stop reacting on autopilot and you start making intentional, thoughtful decisions that are aligned with your goals and values. And that creates a life of fulfillment. Okay, before we go, one last thing. I just want to give a quick word of warning. So if you're watching this and you think to yourself, this makes perfect sense, I'm going to start working on this right now, everything's going to be better, I want to just give you a heads up. Initially, especially if this is a new practice for you, you are going to feel like you're lying to yourself. And I am not kidding. The deeper an old belief goes, and the more of your identity that is tied up into it, the harder this becomes. And it is so important that if you are working to change something in your life, that you recognize this, because you need to be willing. You need to be willing to feel like you're lying to yourself and be uncomfortable for a little while. Your brain has one job: keeping you alive, keeping you breathing. So anything that is unfamiliar, anything at all, even a belief or a thought, is going to feel like a threat to your survival, truly. And you need to prepare for that going into this. It's going to help you stay true to yourself so that you can keep telling yourself the new meaning regardless, all the time. At the end of the day, guys, what's important is to remember we are all meaning-making machines, but we don't have to let our brains operate on autopilot. We really do get to choose the meanings we assign to our experiences, and with that awareness comes the power to make more purposeful, intentional decisions. Now, if this idea resonates with you, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I would really love to hear how you're choosing meaning in your life. And don't forget to check out my website for more insights on intentional living. And you can book me as a speaker at your next event. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget how powerful this process is for you. And until next time, consider your life, be on purpose. Bye-bye.